The next chapter of Raider football has officially begun with the introduction of Clint Kubiak as the next Raiders head coach. That plus more coming up on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for February 11th, 2026.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcast network. You know, we're very proud of that. We're also very proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and because of the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well, as many of you do, at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you, 707-654-4693. We'll get to as many calls and texts as possible as we close out the show, as we normally do. Segment number 3, again, calls, texts, a lot of great feedback, especially based off what you heard from Clint Kubiak on Tuesday as the introductory press conference, 707-654-4693. That'll come up as segment number 3. Segment number 2, Hall of Famer Howie Long. I had an opportunity to catch up with him on Tuesday at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. He was actually on his way to the car. He was on his way to go see his grandbaby, and I was like, man, I got to catch up with somebody. I got to catch up with a gold jacket, and Howie Long was one of many legends that were there at the press conference, and so I caught up with him. He gave me a few minutes of his time. You'll hear that conversation coming up. Segment number 2. Here is segment number 1. As you can imagine, it's all about Clint Kubiak and the introductory press conference. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. And I'll tell you this, there's been a lot of conversation about Clint Kubiak and what he isn't. Well, he's not a guy that's going to capture the room. He's not going to go in there and, all of a sudden be the rah-rah guy. He's not going to get everyone fired up where they want to run through a wall for him. He's not that guy that's going to yell out Raiders and get everyone fired up. He's just, he's got a kind of a bland personality. I'll tell you what. My biggest takeaway from the press conference on Tuesday was he's all about ball. Straight up, he's all about ball. Seeing him, talking to the media, doing his opening statement, answering questions, he said it. He said it during the press conference. I'm not that good at this, right? But what he is good at is talking ball. And so it didn't take me long to realize during the press conference, and it went probably about, 30 minutes long at least. Started at about 11 a.m. and got wrapped up between like 30 and 35. It didn't take me long to realize that this is not what he wants to do. Talk about why he took the job. Talk about, what the Raiders mean, what this opportunity means, coming from a family of football coaches. Like, that's not what he wants to talk about. He wants to talk about ball. He wants to talk about, players like Ashton Genty. He wants to talk about, what kind of team this is going to be, gritty, sitting up there with a bunch of legends around him. And I thought it was really cool at the press conference. It was Will Kiss, who's in charge of PR. He introduced John Spytek, the GM. John Spytek comes up, speaks to the media, speaks to Raider Nation, and then introduces the head coach, Clint Kubiak. On stage, you have Mike Haynes. You have Howie Long. You have Marcus Allen. You have Jim Plunkett. You have Charles Woodson. You have Rich Gannon. All 6 of those guys on stage. And then you have John Spytek, the GM, in the middle, and then Clint Kubiak there. So you want to talk about a welcome to the organization type moment? Have all those legends on stage with you. You had an MVP of the league in Rich Gannon. You have Super Bowl champs around you. You had a defensive player of the year around you and a Super Bowl champ in Charles Woodson, right? Howie Long, I mean, that's a gold jacket right there. Mike Haynes, Super Bowl winner, gold jacket. Marcus Allen, Super Bowl MVP, gold jacket. Jim Plunkett, Super Bowl champion, should be a gold jacket. I mean, just so much greatness around him. What a welcome to the organization type moment. And again, through all the questions that he was asked, you could tell he was about ball. You could tell that he was ready for the challenge, right? Paul Gutierrez from Raiders.com had asked him about how daunting it was being up there with all those players, all that greatness around him and knowing the expectation. He said, that's part of the challenge. I'm excited about it. It's not daunting at all. Like, he is a guy who's very confident. He's also very humble. He's not a rah-rah guy. He's not going to come to you with a bunch of cliches. He's not going to go up there and stand in front of the podium and yell out Raiders. And that's not a shot at AP, but that was AP's thing, right? He was a rah-rah guy. Clint Kubiak's not a rah-rah guy, right? Pete Carroll was all about competition, right? All about we're going to win 10 games. That's what we do. Clint Kubiak didn't put any kind of number out there, said we're going to go out there and compete. We're going to go out there and work hard. We're going to go out there and play with grit, like the players that are on the stage with me, the way that they played. Look, Klint Kubiak, he's seen the Raiders from the other side. He's seen the Raiders from the Denver side of things with his father, Gary Kubiak, right? Obviously, with the Broncos organization, he understands what the Raiders are all about. I thought that was very important. We actually caught up with Mark Davis following the press conference, and I asked him about that, like, how important it was, and he said it was very important to understand the organization. As MD said, there's 31 other teams, and then there's the Raiders. So Klint Kubiak knows that. I was really excited just to hear a lot of his answers, right? He was talking about the silent tape. He was talking about physicality. He was talking about effort in practice, right? He was saying, look, there's nothing I can say up here that's going to turn this team into a winner. It's about what we do on the field, right? It's all about the silent tape. It's all about the work that we put in. I could say whatever up here. None of that matters. And I like that approach. And again, I'm not saying that means that they're going to go win 10, 12 games and go to the playoffs and make a deep run. Not at all. Right? As I said many times, this is going to be a slow build. But knowing that he has the opportunity to have this slow build with the organization, he's got the 5-year contract. He's got everyone beside him having his back. It seems like now it's the John Spytek and Klint Kubiak show, right? As opposed to what we saw last year at the press conference, it seemed like as Pete Carroll and John Spytek were introduced and asked questions, Pete Carroll would jump in. Like one of the questions, who's going to be making the final decisions? Oh, we're going to make that as a collaborative effort. We're going to do this. Everything we're going to do is together. That was Pete Carroll. John Spytek was sitting there and not saying anything, right? Because Pete Carroll was so, as a matter of fact, that he had the right answers. And that's nothing wrong with that. But this truly felt like being there in the building, watching the press conference, asking the questions, felt like this was a John Spytek hire. The whole press conference went, and I was very quiet. I wanted to listen. He answered a lot of questions that I had. I rolled out on Tuesday's edition of the show 5 questions that I wanted to get answered. And a lot of times he answered the questions without that exact question being asked, right? He mentioned that it's not really about scheme. It's about the player's effort. It's the way that they go out there and work. I could appreciate that, right? That was a big deal. I did ask him about the zone blocking scheme. As a matter of fact, I didn't ask him during the introductory press conference, but afterwards he went through what we call the car wash. He went through a bunch of different stations. He talked to JT the Brick during the midday show on Raider Nation Radio 920, talked to multiple TV stations, right? He did a Raiders roundtable with Raiders.com, Silver and Black Productions. That was great. He sat down with Harry Ruiz, the Latino voice of the Silver and Black. And right after he talked to Harry, I was standing right there and I said, look, Coach, you've already done all the introductory stuff. I just want to ask you a couple questions about ball. And I wanted to go back to the zone blocking scheme because that is a staple of the Shanahan tree. That is a staple of the Kubiaks. We know what Gary Kubiak and he did in Houston as the head coach and how they always ran the zone blocking scheme. We also know that hasn't worked very well for the Raiders at all every time they try to implement it. So I had a couple of questions. I talked about it on Tuesday's show. I wanted to know some characteristics and why it's so effective. Well, I got an opportunity, a quick opportunity, to ask Klint Kubiak those questions.
You've done all the welcoming.
Yeah.
A staple of the Shanahan tree, the Kubiak tree, has always been the zone blocking scheme and the way that running backs are able to take advantage. We saw Kenneth Walker earn the MVP. What is it about that scheme that makes running backs so effective if they execute it correctly?
I think it's just repetition. You kind of give them some parameters early, and then you just start repping things over and over and over again from April all the way to February. And you change formations. You might change how many backs are in the backfields, but it's really the basic teaching of it is pretty elementary, and it's repeatable. So when guys can build on cumulative reps and just build muscle memory, they can get better as the season goes on. That's what you saw with K9.
What is the characteristics in the offensive lineman to be able to execute that zone blocking scheme correctly?
Well, you got to be athletic, obviously, but you can't be so light that you can't pass pro. You know? So really the most important thing is getting a really bright center that can ID fronts and get everybody on the same page. It all starts with him.
What about Ashton Jeanty? You mentioned him in the presser that you can't wait to turn on the film and work with him. Yeah. Can you envision him? All I saw when I watched K9, I saw Ashton Jeanty running. What do you think about him?
Supremely talented guy that seems like he has a great attitude and a great head on his shoulders. There's so many talented guys in the NFL, but the ones that play great football are really intelligent and they work hard. So, that's what I hear about him, and I know I'll get to know him better as the months go on.
So there was his answers, and I tell you, as soon as I asked that, and it's out there on social media, at your boy Q254 on Twitter, at your boy Q Sports on IG, you could see his face almost like, oh, man, I'm getting a football question, right? That's what he wants. When he sat there and talked to Amber Thea Harris, and she's one of the best in the business, right? James Jones, Eric Allen. Once that was over, you can almost see the look in his face like, whew, I'm glad that's done. He just wants to coach ball. He just wants to talk ball. And if you get him in the conversation, I can't wait, because now moving forward, he knows that I want to talk ball. I don't need the, how great is this opportunity? What made you know that the Raiders was the right job? Like, none of that. It's all about ball, and I know exactly how to approach that conversation now moving forward. But you heard what he had to say about the zone blocking scheme, heard about the athleticism when it comes to the offensive lineman. Heady right here, got it between the ears as a center, so that's something to think about. And also, you've got to have repetition. You've got to do it over and over and over. And the most important thing about it is you're going to have an offensive line coach that can coach it up, that can teach it up, that can, show the way it's supposed to be done. What is the goal they're trying to achieve? He's going to have to be able to do that. I think they will, but I guarantee you that that's the scheme that they're going to run as far as that offensive line goes. That zone blocking scheme, Ashton Jeanty could benefit from it in a major way, but they've got to get it down. They've got to get the offensive linemen in place that can execute it. They've got to get the coach in place that can coach it up and teach it up. And then Ashton Jeanty's got to make the best of it and show what he can do. He's a very patient runner. He's also a very explosive runner. So that combination right there could be huge for the Raiders, but they've got to be able to execute it. Repetition, repetition, repetition. That's what Klint Kubiak said to me, as you heard earlier on Tuesday after his introductory press conference. So what does Howie Long think? The Hall of Famer, the gold jacket, one of the legends that was on stage next to him while he had his press conference. You'll actually hear the conversation I had with him. You'll hear that coming up. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors we have here on the show, and the first one is Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, well, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored job boosts your post to the people who are the best match for your role and that make a real difference. And according to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. So spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and let them know that you heard about this on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Indeed. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. You heard my thoughts on the Klint Kubiak press conference on Tuesday. Thought it was well done. I came away from it feeling very positive about the head coach moving forward, and I felt positive about Antonio Pierce. I felt positive about Pete Carroll, and I feel positive about Klint Kubiak. But it's funny, all three of those guys, I felt positive about them, but in a different lens. In a different sense, if that makes any sense, right? Like, AP had me fired up because he's a rah-rah guy, right? I'm like, man, I'm ready to run through a wall for AP, right? He's one of those guys that can stand up in front of a room and capture you, right? There's certain guys that have that gift. I always say Matt Rule is that guy. He's the son of a preacher. He can get in front of a room of thousands, get behind the microphone, and just all eyes on him, all ears locked in, right? That's who he is. He's very charismatic. He's very much that guy who can, like I said, just capture a room. People are gifted like that. That is a blessing. He did that. Pete Carroll had the resume, right? He's had the proof of concept. Okay, this can be done. And look, this is my proof of concept right here. This is what I've done in my career, collegiately and professionally. So okay, I could buy in on that, and I'm feeling good about it. But this one is just different. There is no proof of concept. He's never been a head coach before. He's not a rah-rah guy. He's not going to stand up in front of the room and talk for 20 minutes and everyone's going to be locked in like, man, what Klint Kubiak here is saying best. He's not. He's very calm. He's very chill. He's very relaxed. He's very honest. He's very humble. He's going to tell you how he feels. And, some of the things that he said about, having staff that doesn't mind, getting on players when they're not doing things the correct way. When he's talking about, I got to go check out the film and learn a lot about these players. right? I mean, stuff like that. When he's saying things like that, to me, that's nothing but a positive and feels like, okay, this is a true ball coach. Is there going to be bumps and bruises along the way? Yeah, bumps in the road for sure. First-time head coach, you couldn't expect anything less. But just a guy that understands what is at stake, right? Today, he's going to be in Seattle for the press conference, or not the press conference, the parade. And then he's going to be right back in Vegas on Thursday getting to work. And he said it, I'm behind, right? I got a lot of film to do. I got a lot of film study. He's got to hire his coaches. He's got to get ready for the combine coming up in a couple of weeks. He's got a lot of work he's got to do. He's not, not showing his cards. We all expect he's going to take Fernando Mendoza. Those two are going to grow together. That makes all the sense in the world. Even Mark Davis, after the press conference, kind of alluded to that as well. Yeah, there's a good chance we take an offensive guy with the number 1 overall pick, and Clint Kubiak and him could grow together. Well, that's, you can read between the lines. You get it. But it's just something about him, his demeanor. He just seemed like a no-nonsense guy, not like a jerk, but just a no-nonsense, let's get to football, not going to crack a whole bunch of jokes. I'm not going to be, smiling all the time. I just want to get to work, and I want this team to be successful. He comes from a historical, team. The Kubiaks obviously been around the NFL for a very long time. His dad has 4 Super Bowl rings. He has a Super Bowl ring now as an offensive coordinator. Right, his brother Clay is going to end up being a coach someday, and he has his other brother that's there in Dallas, and he's expected to be a GM one day. Klein Kubiak. So they're a football family, and you can only imagine what the conversations are like when they're talking ball. And I learned from that, and you heard it in segment number 1, just the quick interaction that we had. He wants to talk ball. So another guy that has no problem talking ball is the great Howie Long, the Hall of Famer, the gold jacket. You see him on Fox on game days. I mean, the dude has made a hell of a career as a broadcaster. Well, I didn't have too much time with him, and it was really cool that the powers that be said, hey, man, as long as you can walk and talk with him while he's on his way to the car because he's got to go see the grandkids, you can have that conversation. So the versatility that I've learned to have, yep, no problem. Let's make it happen. Pull out my phone. Let's get on. Let's get it. So here's my conversation, just a few minutes with the Hall of Famer, the gold jacket, the great Howie Long.
Here with the Hall of Famer, Howie Long, and you just saw the Clint Kubiak presser. You were up there on stage. What did you think of Clint and what he's going to bring for the Raiders?
I think he's exhausted. As it's a long year, and it's if you're fortunate enough to have the season go as long as it did for them, and having just won a Super Bowl, and he's got those 4 kids, and it's. You could see they're tired,
right?
And I get it. He's a football guy, playing against his dad, and then watching his dad evolve as a coach, and now he's got 2 brothers also in the league, and knowing the stops that he's made, particularly, I think the important ones is Denver and I think San Francisco. I think that offense, whether it's the Mike Holmgren version,
right.
It's the John Gruden version, it's the Shanahan version, it's the McVay version, and different iterations of that. I think that's probably where they're at. But all of them kind of, I think, implement the run game, tie it with the passing game. You saw that, make it quarterback friendly, put duress on defenses, force them to bring defenders in the box and open things up in the passing game. And I think probably the most important thing, and I think it's the thing that he emphasized a lot, is culture, accountability, self-accountability, and being as one. The group has to be as one, and that was the thing that I think our group always had in common. And you saw the guys that were up there today, and I played with Jim early in my career and late in his career, and won a Super Bowl with him, and with Marcus and Mike Haynes, and great players, and great players hold themselves accountable, and they don't want to disappoint the group. And Sunday nights should never be a comfortable night because you're always worried about what you didn't do.
Right.
I could have a great game, but maybe those 3 plays, I'm chasing the Holy Grail. It's unattainable.
Right.
So you're never comfortable. The minute you're comfortable, you move backwards.
Right. You are up on stage with the legends, and Clint Kubiak obviously has seen it from his side of view, from the Broncos side
As
of
a
things.
kid.
Right. But he referenced you guys. We need to get back to playing gritty football like these guys did. How important was that for him to understand what this organization is all about?
I think he did because he's a Denver guy.
Right. Yeah.
I'd say he's a Denver guy, but his dad's a Denver guy.
Right.
And, the rivalry is always there, and you see them twice a year, and there's no love lost, and
Right.
All that. So I think when you probably know your division better than anything.
Yeah.
When you're a Denver guy and you're on the coaching staff there, your dad's on the coaching staff there, and you watch those games and you see the players and the probably players that you gravitate towards, but they're on the other team.
Right.
Yeah.
With him being an offensive guy, we'll close out with this. How important is it for him to have Max Crosby, that defensive presence, set that tone?
You know what? I haven't talked. There's a lot of.
Yeah, there is.
There's a lot of.
Yeah, exactly.
Going on with Max. I don't know, and I wouldn't speak for Max because
Right.
I haven't talked to Max about it.
But to have that difference maker.
I love Max.
Yeah.
I think he's this team's best player.
Yeah, for sure.
He's been this team's best player. He's kind of a culture driver. He's a guy that I think, if Max is leading look, there's a reason why they put the one Husky up to front of the Max is that guy.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that all that is just nothing more than smoke. And I think all Max wants to do is Max wants to win.
Just win.
He wants to win,
Yeah.
and he wants to know there's a stable direction. And hopefully this is it. Listen, you got to climb the mountain every year.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yep.
Every year somebody falls short of, the summit.
Mm-hmm.
And we're no different. And, the one thing that we learned about Seattle is Seattle was able to get it done over a couple of years, and they did it pretty quickly.
No doubt. Well, the Hall of Famer Howie Long with us. Thanks so much for your time. Now get to your grandbaby.
I will.
So that was my conversation right there with the Hall of Famer Howie Long, and really good detail from him. Obviously, he knows what he's looking for. One of the things that stood out to me throughout the course of the press conference, and if you watched it, then you probably noticed it as well. If not, go back and look. While he was answering questions, whatever the question was, you saw a lot of the Hall of Famers, and I like to study body language. I like to see reactions. A lot of the Hall of Famers, a lot of the guys that were on stage with them were nodding like, yep, that's the correct answer. Yep. It's almost like that was their sign of approval. And for the fact that they came back to be there for that, I thought that meant a big deal. Again, he's not going to be a big rah-rah guy. He's not a guy that's going to run up and down the hallways and get everyone fired up. Right? I mean, I asked him about Max Crosby. Obviously, that was a big deal. I mentioned that on Tuesday, wanted to ask about Max Crosby. It took the whole press conference. Then my guy, Case Kiefer, asked about Max, and then it was going to be my turn. And I was like, well, let me do a follow-up. And so, even though Max wasn't necessarily present at the press conference, I saw him on the way into the presser, kind of gave him a little, head nod. He gave the head nod back. He was there working. What Clint Kubiak revealed in the press conference was me and Max sat down this morning. We had some coffee. We talked. Communication is open. So with all the rumors going on about Max Crosby and does he or does he not want to play, Clint Kubiak is already talking with him. And I'm sure once they get their defensive coordinator in place, they're going to sit down and have more conversations with Max Crosby and say, this is our plan. This is our timeline. This is what we want to do, and you need to be a big part of it. And then at that point, they'll make a decision, and Max will be a big part of that decision. If he's good with that, if he's not good with that. If he's not, then they'll make decisions possibly to move forward and trade him. And if he is good with it, then he'll be part of the plan. But Clint Kubiak in his press conference said, we want Max to be here, and we want Max to be a part of us moving forward and the success that we plan on having. So, it's again, it feels like everything's in motion. None of anything that happened on Tuesday is going to guarantee a win. It's not going to guarantee a loss either, right? You can't win or lose right now in February. Right now, you're laying the foundation, and once he gets back from the press conference, the parade today, then that's when it's go time. That's when he's in the film room. He's deciding what players they would like to keep around and move forward with, and what players need to go. And again, I squarely look at the offensive line, especially based on what he said in segment number 1. You heard it, talking about the zone blocking scheme. Got to have athletic offensive linemen, guys that are intelligent, especially at the center position, guys that know what they're doing, guys that can do that repetition, and that offensive line coach is going to be important as well. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close out the show. 707-654-4693. We hear from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor we have here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, and that is FanDuel. The winter games, they're officially here. And if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. That's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to all the action. Drama, they've got it. Curling matches, they start slow and then they intense, right? They intensify and get fast. Speed skating races decided by inches. Hockey games, you're up there competing for your country, man. I don't care if you're a hockey fan or not. You're locked in, right? Every single event becomes must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition, and FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on. There's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. We do want to thank you so much for making this the first listen of the day. Let's go ahead and start off with a call from Eduardo in Santa Ana. He's calling to talk about all the Raider headlines and storylines that are surrounding the team right now. And as you heard Howie Long in segment number 2, there's a lot. There's a lot. Here's Eduardo in Santa Ana.
So what's up, Q? This is Eduardo once again from Santa Ana, California. Big shout out to you and Ari once again. Good morning. I just wanted to give my 2 cents on all the Raider news that we've seen lately. I think Clint Kubiak's a hell of a hire. I think he's a hell of a OC for the Seahawks that is going to now be the head coach of the Raiders. Giving my 2 cents in regards to the draft, to what I think we should expect for the upcoming season. I think once we upgrade that O-line, should give us a chance. This whole Max Crosby rumors of him getting traded and whatnot, I think it's yearly drama that happens, you know. But I think that the Raiders shouldn't trade him, because if we're soon to be relevant, at least I think we're gonna go in the right direction. I think he, out of everyone in the team, deserves to be part of it. And like you say, if he decides to get traded, I think that's because he requested it, and not so much for the Raiders just wanting to ship him out, you know? But let me know what you think, man. I think the Raiders' future is bright. Like Al Davis said once, the greatness of the Raiders is in his future. Yeah, man, I just wanted to call in and see what you think, and I'm excited for the future, man. Go Raiders.
Eduardo, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate you, and I do believe that Kubiak is a hell of a hire, right? Obviously, I want to see how things go and how he handles going from OC to head coach, right? That's obviously a big deal. It's a big step up. How quickly can he adapt, right? And then what does the hiring process look like when it comes to the staff, right? The DC hire is going to be huge. I was talking to Kirk Morrison on Tuesday just to the side, and he said, man, Q, one of the biggest things I'm looking for is the DC hire. Who is he going to hire? How are they going to put that together? Because, again, he's an offensive-minded guy, so that defensive-minded coach, that defensive coordinator is going to be huge. How is this guy going to maximize Max Crosby? How is he going to maximize all the other players that they have on the defensive side of the ball? How are they going to lean into the defense and help the Raiders be a complete team? That's going to be big. And obviously, we'll wait and see what happens with Max. I feel like he's not going anywhere. That's just me. But until it's said and done, and you see him suiting up for the Raiders, all bets are off. We just have to kind of, like I said, wait and see how it all goes down. But thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Irv in San Diego. Hey, Q, it's been a while since I text. Just want to thanks to you and Ari for all the hard work. I love the new hire of Kubiak. What Kubiak did well on Sunday was not let the offense get in the way of the defense, meaning manage the game. And my favorite, take the points. How many coaches would have went for it on 4th down? 3 points in this game was crucial. Each field goal was almost worth 7 points in a defensive game like that. Too many coaches don't take the points. Not sure if those were Mike McDonald calls or not, but nonetheless, great offensive execution. How many times have we seen teams lose a close game by not kicking the easy field goals when they had the chance? I think we nailed the coaching hire. Raider Nation, just win, baby. That's Irv in San Diego. And look, you can make the argument that Denver should have been in the Super Bowl. If they kick the field goal instead of going for it on 4th down, and they take the 3 points and they go up 10-0, right? Then there's a good chance against New England that they win that game, right? But instead they don't kick the field goal. They don't get the 1st down. New England gets the ball. Boom, here they go. They're coming back, and they end up punching their ticket to the Super Bowl. So, Keyshawn Johnson, he told me that on Radio Row. I said, hey, man, the Broncos were one broken ankle away from maybe being in the game. He said, no. One broken ankle and one decision not to kick the field goal. So you're right about that. And the Seahawks made a decision. They were going to kick those field goals. Jason Myers looked like he was going to be the MVP of the game for the longest. And look, he had 17 points. The Seahawks only scored 29. He had 17 of his own self. Right, but who wants a kicker to be the MVP? If Kenneth Walker hadn't gone off the way he did, right? I mean, he doesn't get that. And if Sam Darnold doesn't throw a touchdown pass, he doesn't get he wouldn't get an MVP. It easily could have been Jason Myers. But yeah, I mean, again, when you have a defense like Seattle, it's easy to kick the field goals and be happy with getting the points. The problem is if you don't have that defense and all of a sudden you kick a couple field goals and you're only up 6-0 and your defense isn't worth the salt, then they give up a big touchdown really quickly. Now all of a sudden you're losing. So the Raiders will have to do their job to pick up that defense to be able to be in that position to do something like that. But thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Got a call from Mark in Kentucky. He's calling to talk about Alex Guerrero and what his role is with the team. Here's Mark in Kentucky.
Q, Mark in Kentucky. Got a question for you in regards to Alex Guerrero and his involvement with the Raiders. What is his involvement? I just heard Albert Breer say something about how Max is not happy with Brady and Alex Guerrero. And sometimes these reporters, I don't really buy what they're saying, but what stuck out to me about what Breer said was Guerrero. Guerrero had issues in New England with a rift in him and Bill Belichick, very documented. So to hear Guerrero's name come up now with a rift with Max Crosby makes me nervous. Can you elaborate or explain to us Alex Guerrero's role with this team?
Marky Mark, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. At first, if Albert Breer is saying that there are issues with Guerrero, then there's something there, right? Something's going on. He doesn't make stuff up. He's very dialed in. Albert Breer is one of the best in the business. As far as Guerrero's role goes, that's Brady's guy. I know he's heavily involved in the nutritional side of things, body maintenance side of things. I know during the training camp, when it was hot out in Henderson at the facility, a lot of players said, hey, man, Alex Guerrero, his team, the way that they're teaching us to be, have the nutrition in our body is keeping us in shape, and we're able to deal with this heat going on here, right? So it wasn't one of those situations where they had to go to Costa Mesa and have their training camp. But I've also had, a guy that was formerly in the building of the Raiders let me know by way of text message. He kind of called Alex Guerrero the assistant GM. And again, that's Tom Brady's guy. Tom Brady's part of ownership, but that's how they worded it. That's how they called Alex Guerrero, assistant GM. So take that for what it's worth. When you talk about the relationship with Brady and Guerrero, maybe even Spytek, when Max was on with Golick and he said he's got a great relationship with guys in the building, and then he said for the most part, that's immediately what I thought. Okay, Spytek, is that who he's talking about when he says for the most part? Is it Brady? Is it other? I didn't think of Guerrero, but it could be. Right? So when he said for the most part, he was referencing someone. I don't know exactly who that is, but thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. We'll close out with a text from Ant Dog Raider in the ATL. It says, yo, Q, Ant Dog Raider from the ATL. One question, how did you not become a fanboy with all those Raider legends on the stage? I would have given good money to be there. Hella excited that we have a double K as a head coach. He said all the right things. Let's go. Keep up the great work. Raiders. It's Ant Dog Raider in the ATL. And yeah, it was really cool. And I was talking to Paul Gutierrez. I was actually sitting next to him in the theater room. And he said, man, back in the day, like 13-year-old Paul would be in Hog's Heaven looking at all those legends on stage, right? Because that was the era that he grew up, with the Howie Longs, with the Mike Haynes, right? With the Jim Plunkett's, right? Guys like that, right? Guys that got it done. Marcus Allen, right? I mean, that was his run. That was his era. So he's like, man, sitting at the table with those guys, just looking around, 13-year-old Paul would have lost his mind. And look, the good thing is, and I'm so blessed, and I say this all the time, I have an opportunity to be at the facility a lot. And I had an opportunity to be there and do my radio show there all afternoon, sit there in the indoor facility. And I had the opportunity to walk outside and talk with Howie Long. I had the opportunity to sit next to Charles Woodson. I had the opportunity to shake Marcus Allen's hand, say hello to Jim Plunkett like I see him all the time. Right? Rich Gannon. Hey, what's up, Q? Like that, that's cool. Mike Haynes, hey, Mike, what's up, man? Hey, man, it's good to see you. It's good to be seen, Q. Like, for these guys to know who I am is a big deal. It's a big deal to me because, like you said, man, as a fan growing up, these guys don't need to know who I am. But the fact that I've been around enough, I've talked to them enough, and they remember me is, to me, is a big deal. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't want to – I'm not going to fanboy out, but just understanding that I have the respect from legends like that to me is a big deal. So thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. I know exactly where you're coming from. That's going to do it for today's show. Of course, we'll have more coming up on tomorrow's show. Your calls and texts, more news and notes. We'll see Clint Kubiak back in the facility on Thursday, and he's going to start putting his staff together if he's not already putting his staff together. But, of course, we'll have it for you coming up on tomorrow's show. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.